Dana White has revealed the first title fight for UFC 300. While some fans were hoping for more, additional matchups are anticipated to be announced soon. Here is what Dana said.
On August 13, 2019, history was made when Weili Zhang beat Jessica Andrade to become the first Chinese champion in UFC history. Well, guess what? 5 years later, we will see history being made again as Weili Zhang faces #1 contender Jon Jones for the UFC strawweight title on UFC 300, and this is the first time two Chinese contenders have faced off for a world title. Why is this such a badass fight? Let me tell you why. Weili Zhang has 19 finishes and 24 wins. That's an 80% finish rate. She is tied for second most title wins in strawweight history, and she was involved in arguably one of the greatest fights ever versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Her last fight was the most dominant statistical win ever in UFC women's history against Amanda Lemos. She outstruck her 288-21 in that fight. She landed the most strikes on the ground by a UFC strawweight ever. Now, Yan is the first Chinese female ever signed to the UFC. She's got the most head strikes landed in a single UFC strawweight fight ever. And she is coming off a first-round knockout against Jessica Andrade in under 3 minutes, which, by the way, she was a 2-1 underdog in that fight, and she has 8 first-round knockouts. This fight has badass written all over it. So, there's one of the title fights for UFC 300. I will have at least 2 or more for you tomorrow. Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Ian Garry talked about leaving Leon Edwards' gym because Edwards saw him as a threat in their division. Garry shared his side of the story, saying that Edwards feeling threatened was the main reason for him leaving. Here is what he said. "I went up one day and I was politely asked to not return. I was driving up that day because I had booked sessions in. I went to Renegade to talk to Leon and I was stopped by Ash, one of the owners of the gym, and Leon's head coach. We sat outside and we had a conversation about it. What I took away from that conversation was that Leon and his head coach didn't want me training on the mats with Leon. If you're Leon's head coach and you say that to me in person, you give me a genuine reason, you're not gonna turn around to Leon. I told him he's a threat to you. I didn't want you to get anxious. No good head coach would say that to his fighter. If it was something to do with Renegade, there's a separate striking coach who I was very fond with and I like to work with. If it was to do with Renegade, then why couldn't I train with him? Because Leon and his head coach didn't want me training with anybody Leon trains with because of the doubts and insecurities." According to Leon Edwards, Ian Garry's departure from the gym was because Garry seemed incompatible with the gym's culture. Edwards also mentioned concerns about Garry constantly bringing cameras and recording everything that happened in the gym. Michael Bisping warns Jon Jones that if he retires without fighting Tom Aspinall, people will say he's afraid of him. The situation is complicated in the heavyweight division right now. Even though Aspinall is the interim champion, Jon Jones doesn't show interest in fighting him. Instead, he aims for a legacy fight with Miocic, whose last win was 4 years ago. Here is what Bisping said about the situation. "He doesn't have anything to prove, other than he can beat Tom Aspinall. Because if he does retire right now, that is always going to be the narrative. There's people out there, and I know this annoys Jones, so I'm sorry to bring it up. People say that he avoided Francis. I'm not saying that, but that's a narrative that exists. I don't think that's true, but people do say that. If he doesn't fight Tom Aspinall, if he beats Miocic, that will forever be the narrative. That will forever be the narrative that he's ducking Tom Aspinall, that he's afraid of Tom Aspinall. That he looks at Tom Aspinall, this gigantic man, a true heavyweight that moves like a middleweight." Many fans agree with Bisping that they want to see Jon Jones compete in the heavyweight division against the best. Right now, Miocic doesn't seem like the top choice. Only time will tell if we'll witness an Aspinall versus Jon Jones or if it will remain a curiosity for fans. Thanks for watching. If you're a fan of MMA, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss an update. Also leave a comment below with your thoughts on today's news. Keep supporting the sport, and we'll see you in the next one.